All right, so this one here, there's really no damage to it. It's pretty much a brand new Range Rover. But the customer bought it and it had a license plate here. So we're in Pennsylvania, so it doesn't need a front license plate, so we took that off and we filled the holes. There's 4 holes from the license plate bracket. So on Friday, we pretty much got this one almost finished up. It's almost ready for paint. All I'm gonna do now to finish it up is go over it with some 220 to make sure it's completely straight. Then we'll take the DA, clean out all our scratches in it, get it all the way up to 600 grit. Then we'll scuff it and get it ready for primer. So let's go. Beautiful. All right, cool. It feels great. It's nice and straight. Yeah. I'm happy with that. So we'll get our DA. Got a soft foam interface pad on here. It helps you kind of feather out all your edges. If we're just using the hard pad, sometimes that just kind of leaves an edge that we don't like. So like I said, we did the 220 with the block. I'm gonna do the 220 again real quick with the DA. And we'll work our way all the way up to 600. So that's it for the 220. Move on to 320. For the 320, we don't need to spend a lot of time on it. We're not trying to change the shape of it or anything. We're just trying to get out those deeper scratches in it that we don't want to have show through in our primer and our paint. So that was 320. Now we're going to do 600. Feels nice. Yeah, it feels great. You can't even feel a difference between, you know, the painted part, then going where you have a breakthrough in the plastic, and then into the body filler. Even that breakthrough up there. If I had my eyes closed, I wouldn't even be able to tell you, you know, what exactly I was touching. It all feels exactly the same, and that's what we want. All right, so now it's time to, we'll get 800 grit. We're not going to go over the body work with the 800 grit. So we have to go over everything else, which I think somebody already did a little bit last week. I'm gonna go over it again just to make sure it's nice. We want to get rid of the shine. That way our primer and our paint will stick to it. If we didn't scuff it up, you know, even just a couple days down the road, all our paint would start flaking off. So I'm gonna go over it with the 800 grit. then gray scuff with scuff stuff, and we'll clean it up from there. So that's a long, boring process, so I will just do a time-lapse video on that. Alright, so I just blew it off. Everything's nice and clean, pretty much ready to get taped up. But one thing I forgot to do that a lot of times I'll do actually when I'm scuffing it is to go ahead and take these headlight washers out, the covers out of it. So basically you just got to pull that out, and it's just got a little clip on each side that allows that washer cover to come off. I'll scuff in here, get that nice and clean. It's just a better job, it's the right way to do it. That way you're just getting your clear coat down inside of here to get a full seal on it. And then also there's a lot of dirt that hides in here, you know, like that. So if I were to just start painting it, some of that dirt might come out of there and get in my paint, and we don't want that. Alright, so time to tape. Alright, so for this one, we're just taping up for primer. It's going to be nice and quick. We only need to tape up this center section here. We don't need to tape everything up because we only need primer right here. So I'm just going to back tape this. Sticking the tape to that back edge down there, and then I'm gonna do the same thing up top, and then we'll just get some paper, put the paper on that, and then we'll plastic up the whole car. So I'm just pushing down the back edge of that tape, folding it up, and then that's what the tape edge of the paper will stick to. A little bit of a breakthrough that comes out to about there, so I will need to get a little bit of tape and paper up on the headlight. Now I would do a much cleaner, much more careful job if this was for paint, you know, but for primer it's not that big of a deal. Just want to make sure I don't get any excess on, like any overspray or anything on the headlights. Again, breakthrough out to about there. All right, and we'll go get our paper. So like I said, we got our paper, a little bit of tape on it. So we'll put two tape edges together so that sticks real nice. Do one across the top. A little short, I need one more over the headlight there. And then for the sides here, I'll take the paper and I'll actually put it this way. You know, it looks like I'm covering up some of the bodywork here, but then what we do is we'll roll this back over just a little bit past where that breakthrough is. And I'm not gonna let that crease. We're gonna leave it a nice soft edge there, and that'll give our primer a soft edge, not a hard tape edge. And that way when we go to sand our primer down, you know, it doesn't have a hard edge because that'll show through into our paint. And we'll do the same thing for the other side. So again, put that on there. Have your paper out covering the bodywork. Roll it back, nice soft edge. And we'll just do one piece of tape here to make that stay. Now we'll cover the whole car with plastic, cut that out, and primer. All right, so we covered the car with this plastic. As you can see, it says paint this side. It's because one side of this is actually treated with an adhesion promoter so that our paint will stick to it. If it didn't have that, as I was painting it, some of the paint, if it dried up and then went over it on the next coat, some of it might flake off and actually get into the new coat of wet paint, which would just be a disaster. It would ruin the paint job. So you got to make sure you have this plastic facing the right direction. So all I'm doing is cutting a big hole in it. We'll tape that up to the plastic and start painting. All right, so we got it all taped up, ready for some primer. Let's go mix it up. All right, so we're gonna come back to the computer. Computer's so slow, it's ridiculous sometimes, so hopefully it wants to work for us today. All right, so there's 7 different shades of primer that we can use. So what I mean by that is, you know, GSU, gray shade undercoat 1 is white. GSU 7 is black. So obviously for a white car you'd use white, for a black car you'd use black. Helps you get your coverage, you know, you don't have to use as much of the actual base coat to cover your primer. So this is a dark gray, so we're going to use GSU 6. Alright, that's the one for primer. So we're going to hit make batch. Choose the way that we want to reduce it. All right, so for this I'm thinking we only need 2 ounces. You know, it's really not all that much. I gotta get the RO number for it. All right, so we got RO 2194. So we'll send that over to the scale. All right, now send it over to the scale. So we'll come in here, turn on our mixing machine. It lets all our different tints get mixed up. I usually turn on for about 30 minutes every morning. I didn't do that yet today, so I just want to make sure it's running now. All right, so we'll wake up our scale. Get our 6-ounce PPS cup. So the container is on the scale. And we'll get started. So P30W, which is our white primer. That's 40.2 grams of that. So we'll keep going down until the scale hits 0. And there we go. So we'll go to the next one, and it's going to want a little bit of black primer. That's this one here. 23.6 grams. Going down until the scale hits 0. There we go. Go next, then it's going to ask for the reducer, which is this one here. 8.4 grams. This one's a little harder to be perfect. You just got to get it close. There we go. Went over by 0.1. That's nothing. No, we do not want to recalculate for that small amount. And then the H38 is the hardener for it. Over a little bit on that one, but it's not a big deal. Just go ahead, we'll fill up our primer. See, it'll change from black to kind of a light gray color. There we go. See if you guys can see that. There we go. That's our primer. So this one here is our primer gun. It's a little bit smaller, an LPH 300 made by Iwata. So we're just going to run it. It's clean, but we're just going to put a tiny bit of lacquer thinner through it since it's sat all weekend. Just make sure it's extra clean. So we're going to get our lid on it. Pop that on, make sure the collar is nice and tight. And we're ready to go. Alright, so we're all masked up. We got our primer mixed up. Booth is running. Let's see. As you can see, we got it running at 82 degrees. That's what I found to be the best temperature to spray pretty much anything in. Alright, so we're gonna just blow it off one more time with the air gun. Put a little bit of paper towel on it to get any fine dust off of it. And then we'll go over it with a tack rag that'll pull off anything else that's left on it. And we'll start priming. So let's go. All right. So this is our tack rag. It's just a rag with a little bit of resin on it. It's just got a little bit of tackiness to it, a little bit of stickiness to it. So we're just going to lightly go over that. It'll pull anything off of it that might be left on the surface. Alright, it's about as clean as it can get. Go ahead, we'll start primer. Alright, so you don't want to spray it too heavy because we're going to do 2, possibly 3 coats here. About 6 to 8 inches away, and start putting it on. Alright, so that's our first coat. We'll give that about 2 to 3 minutes to dry. It is a fast primer. I mean, that all depends on the reducer and the hardener you use on it. There is other options to make it take a little bit longer to dry if you're doing, a much bigger area, whether it's, a hood or the whole side of a car or something like that. But with such a small part, I'm just doing a fast primer. There is another option that's even faster. You just do 1 coat and it dries in about, 10 minutes. It's really expensive and it's just not necessary on this job. I think this is the best product for us. So again, we'll just give it 2 to 3 minutes and we'll go back for another coat. Alright, so it's been a couple minutes. It's our flash time. Time to put on another coat. So this one I'm laying just a little bit wetter, moving just a little bit slower. I'm not even sure if you guys can necessarily notice that, but it is going on just a little bit wetter. So now we'll look it over real well and see if there's any reason for us to do a 3rd coat. Get the camera off my mount here and we'll take a good look at it. So you can see we got a nice uniform finish all the way across. Got a good reflection, so you can see all the body work's completely straight on that. That's looking really, really nice. So it won't need much as far as sanding once the primer is done. Just go over real quick with some 600 and get some color on it. This job's coming out nice. Alright, so I did see something really small on it here, but I try to be a perfectionist. So you can see a little bit of that imperfection on that edge there. It's like a little bit of an edge of the bodywork. Well, since it's so small, what I'm going to do is just put a third coat of primer just on that spot to fill it in. And then when we sand it out, we'll just be cautious that that area looks nice before we paint it. Alright, so I'm showing you guys how to clean this gun. Hopefully you can understand that I have my respirator on since we're in the mixing room. Don't want to breathe in all the fumes. Well, safety first. We're going to take the cup off of the top here. Now we'll just remove our air cap. And we're just going to loosen up the fluid nozzle a little bit. And loosen up the adapter. And come here, spray some lacquer thinner inside of it to get out all this excess, because we don't want that all getting in our gun washer. So we're just going to keep running this through until it just looks a little bit more clear. Now we'll remove the adapter completely, remove our fluid nozzle completely, and then do one quick spray to make the needle clean. Install it up nice and clean. Now it's relatively clean but not perfect. I'm going to go over to our gun washer here. See down the hole. So put the air cap on there. Fluid nozzle there. The adapter there. And we'll put the gun upside down there. So the lacquer thinner is going to shoot out of all these holes and make this gun perfectly clean. And then we just put a cap over the air inlet so that we don't get lacquer thinner inside of there. The nozzle broke, or the thing broke, so I just gotta use that. As you can see, all the lacquer thinner's spraying out, and in a couple minutes that gun will be perfect. So now that we're done the primer, we're gonna turn on the bake cycle for the booth. It'll cook this at 140 degrees for about 20 minutes, and then the primer's completely dry, and we'll be able to start sanding it right from there. If I didn't do that, we'd have to wait, you know, about an hour, hour and a half before we can start sanding. So it'll just speed things up. So as we leave here. Go to this, flip this from spray to bake. You'll see that'll change over to 140 degrees. This temperature will start going up. It's 140 degrees. You'll see our temperature start rising pretty quick. All right, we'll go clean out the guns while that cooks. All right, so it's been about 20, maybe even almost 30 minutes. Give it a little bit of cool down time as well. So primer's nice and dry. So what I did was I pulled back our paper, you know, on each side just a little bit to expose that edge. So I know it looks like a straight line, but you can barely even feel it, which is the idea of that rollback. If I just had, you know, a solid piece of tape right there, we'd have a hard edge that we could really feel. And we're going to sand that down. Like I said, you'd end up still seeing it in the paint, you know, even if you sand it out and don't really feel it anymore. But I left the rest of the paper and the plastic on it because I don't want the whole car getting dirty. You know, save us some time on the detail at the end of it. All right, so I got 600 on our DA with, again, that soft foam interface pad. And we'll just go and smooth this all out. Shouldn't take us long. Get my mask on. All right, so real quick, you see all the kind of the spottiness to it? That's called orange peel. You get that in anything you spray, and that's what we really want to get out right now. That way we don't have more orange peel when we go to put our base coat, and then again more orange peel when you put your clear coat on top of it. We're going to sand this nice and smooth, and it'll make our paint job come out really, really nice. So the rest of that I'm going to go over with 600 grit by hand to get rid of this right here and that edge that you saw we did the 3rd coat of primer on. If I try to do it with a DA, it would just end up burning right through it and we'd have to primer it again. So I'm going to do the rest of it by hand. I usually have some 600 grit over here. There we go. Let's go ahead, we'll start out the top. Hit it with a red scuff pad and we're ready to tape it up for paint. Remove this completely. Make sure we sand under that edge real nice. There we go. And that's it, guys. It really should not take that long to sand down primer. So I'm going to take your time and do a nice job with your body work so that you're not trying to hide bad body work with primer. You're gonna do it the right way. All right, so we'll just tear all of this down, blow it off, and we will tape it up for paint. All right, so back here at the computer, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put in our paint code 1DF. All right, so obviously Land Rover, Jaguar, and Ford all have the same paint code. We're painting Land Rover, Range Rover right now, so we're gonna hit View Formulas. So here's our formula. So it's all these different tints. We're gonna make our color. Hit Make Batch. Again, choose our reducer. So we got RHF 75, 65, 75, and 85. That's all just dependent on the temperature. Like I said, I spray at 82, so I'm going to use the RHF. I'm going to use the RHF 75 because it'll just help it to dry quicker to get the job done fast. All right, so we're going to do 6.5 ounces. 2194 was our RO number. Hit OK and send that over to the scale. Let's go mix the color. Pull up that formula again, we'll get our PPS cup. Place the container, hit next. First thing it's asking for is 7209, which is just a clear binder. So this just helps carry what are called the PTs, your pearl tones. It's kind of the shimmer, what some people call the glitter in a car. I hate when people call it glitter, but it's the pearl tones. So we got our 7209 in there. We're going to go next. This is for PT30. You can see here is a crystal silver pearl. A little bit more. There we go. 7202, that's silver. Went over a tiny bit, but to be honest, that's going to be just fine. It didn't even ask me to recalculate it, so even the computer's telling me that's fine. 7281, black. Definitely going to make sure we don't go over on this, because that could change the color a lot. Start to slow down as we get closer to 0 here. Perfect. 7235, that's a blue. I think that's a blue that goes red. 7235. Yep, high strength Indo blue that goes red. Again, we definitely don't want to go over on any of the other colors from here on out. .7203, that's another silver. This is with a different size metallic. This one's a large metallic. The other one was medium. And there's also a small, and then a couple other different types of silvers. 7271, so that is a control agent, which just helps our pearl tones and our silver and all that stuff just lay out properly. So again, this doesn't change the color of it at all. $39. So we got a red shade that goes blue. So it's violet, so it's a red that goes blue. $72.82, that's just white. It's almost empty. There we go, that's all it is. Alright, so now it's calling for the RHF 75, that's just the reducer. So I'm just going to put in a little bit of that and then we're going to mix it up. Because once this cup gets full, if I try to mix it up, it'll just be a mess. So you can see how cool that looks before it's mixed up. You can see all the different tints in it. And we'll start mixing it up and you'll see our color come together. There you go. And keep going, make sure all those PTs come off the bottom. They tend to stick to the bottom of the cup. Put it back on the scale. Finish off with our RHF. There we go. So we'll mix that in just a little bit more, get all our reducer mixed in well with it. Already. Alright, so everything's all matched up, ready for paint. Gonna do the same thing as before, blow it off with the paper towel and some air, then go over with the tack rag and ready to start painting. I gotta wear a full suit, not just to keep the paint off of me, actually more importantly to keep all the dirt and lint from my clothes off of the job. We need a good clean paint job. We don't want to have to wet sand this before done. So let's get going. Grab the air gun. as you can see, I like to spray at about 11 psi for my base coat gun. Alright, so it's the first coat. We're not going heavy with it. Just a light first coat. If you go too heavy on your first coat, you could end up with some fish eyes and separation. And obviously you can run it. We don't want to do that. So we're going to be light on our first coat. Want to test a little fine, make sure it's not spraying nice. That's it for the first coat. Like I said, you don't want to go too heavy. We still got some primer bleed through, but we're going to do 2 or 3 coats to get her covered. So we'll give it about 2 to 5 minutes, and then we'll do our next coat. Alright, so it's been a couple minutes. We'll check our base coat in a really inconspicuous spot. Up top here where the grill's covered, just to make sure our paint's not still wet. It's not. So it's a blue tack rag. It's got a little bit less tack to it, a little less grip. So we're going to go over what we just sprayed, just make sure there's no small lint, anything that got in. Just take that out. Not pushing hard. Kind of line it over the surface area. We only need to do where we're putting our color. That'll need to do the whole thing again. We'll do the whole thing again before we clear it. So that's it, second coat. Second coat I went just a tiny bit heavier, really not much. We almost got our coverage. We're definitely going to need one more, possibly a fourth. So yeah, we'll give another couple minutes to dry. And as you can see, I'm only going over the primer areas and then just blending it out on the sides. I don't need to put color over the whole thing, because then we would end up having possibly a color match issue if we went all the way up to the fender with it. Because we're only doing the front of it where the primer is, we're no question about having a color match. We're going to blend it out on each side and we'll clear coat the whole thing. Alright, it's already checked it, it's dry, it's ready for our next coat. So again, always got to tack between every single coat. Make sure your job's come out way cleaner. Now since this is potentially our last coat, I'm going to blend it out just a little bit further. And since that blend is going to go over where these washer covers are, I'm going to need to put a coat of color on each of them. They don't have any primer on, but just to guarantee the color match, and then dust one coat of color over each of them. Check to see if I need another coat. I'm going to actually turn the lights off, then I have a full spectrum color light that we're going to check it with. This isn't a regular flashlight, it's a full spectrum light. It shows you exactly what it would look like outside. So everything looks really good. I don't see any primer bleed through anywhere. The blends look nice. On the underside of this lip, I have a little bit of bleed through. Let's see if you guys are able to see that. Alright, let's see if you guys are able to see that. You can see this all looks really nice. But then if we come under here, it's a little tough to see, but it's a little bit whiter. It just doesn't look as gray as the rest of it. So we'll get one more coat underneath and then again a dusting over the whole thing, and then we'll be ready for clear. Alright, last coat. underneath where we still have a little bit of bleed through, then we'll just blend everything out and go mix our clear. Clear coat's pretty straightforward. Have it in here under my favorites because we mix it all the time. Alright, so we'll do 12 because Range Rovers, it's a huge bumper. It's $21.94. Send that over to the scale. Larger PPS cup. Only 2 parts, just clear and hardener. See, got distracted and went over, so I'm going to recalculate. So yes, recalculate. I'll tell me to put in some more clear to offset the overpour. It's alright, we'll end up using it all anyway. It's not that much more. Not much to stir here. It's clear. Alright, throw a lid on it. Clear gun that I like to use is Iwata LPH 400. I've had this gun for probably 7 years. Haven't even had to rebuild it. As long as you take care of them, they take care of you. So. Let's go clear. All right, so you want to wait about 10-15 minutes. You know, I don't usually wait that long. I'm kind of in a hurry. About 10 minutes in between your final base coat and your clear. So again, as always, you tack it. But since we're doing the clear over the whole thing, we're gonna tack the whole entire job. Again, we're doing with that softer blue tack rag because we don't want to pull any of our base coat or, you know, kind of mess up the metallics that we've laid out. Here we go. Now the fun part. Alright, so we're going to do 2 coats. Again, just like with the base coat, our first coat's a little bit lighter, and then our second coat is nice and wet. So you can see it's not a perfect finish. It looks pretty good. It looks pretty good, but we're definitely going to need another coat. You always got to do 2 coats. So we'll give that about 10 minutes to dry. Then we'll go from there. All right, it's been our 10 minutes. Let's finish it up. All right, so like I said, this time's gonna be a little bit more wet. We're gonna slow it down. I might end up doing two passes on a spot instead of just one, because we want it to lay exactly how we want it to look now. And so before I move on, I'm gonna look at it at all different angles to make sure that I'm happy with the finish. A little bit dry up there. With it. Good.